Hi, I'm Mike, and this is an intro. Alright, this is Sidisi Undead Vizier. Not the card I was intending to do a video on, mostly because the ones I wanted to do a video on are all online and they're not really, for sale yet, and normally I would, just cheap it out and make a proxy, something that doesn't look nearly as good, but even that can't work because my printer isn't working, and frankly, I hate recording off a tablet. I tried it. I'm not going to do that again. I really don't want to. So yeah, instead, we're going to go with one of the guys who I've really learned to love out of the last set that came out. This is from Dragons of Tonkier. I hope I said that right. And this guy is a 5-drop search spell. A 4/6 creature with Death Touch. And when he enters, he lets you sacrifice something. Not when you cast, when he enters. He is... Well, let me read the card. First off, Death Touch. Exploit, which is whenever he enters, you sacrifice a creature. Well, you may, so it's optional. You don't have to. Always nice, that part. And whenever he exploits a creature, you may search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Now, this guy has quite a few applications, beyond the fact that you can search for the perfect card to win. The first one is, if you're running any deck with Sidisi in her, not a green-white one for obvious reasons, this is someone she can search out to search for a card that doesn't, fit with the legendary type. A little workaround there, but probably worth it if there's a really good card you want. The thing about this guy that I really love, though, is his potential as a general himself. Mostly because I have a black-white deck that I'm actually very tempted right now to turn into a Sidisi deck. It's a little bit of a dick move, though, because my current strategy is to drop in Shadowborn Apostles, and if I change up to Sidisi, instead of having a bunch of search spells, I'll cut those down, drop in Sidisi once, search out Thrumming Stone, and be an ass. A giant ass. Because I would have all the Shadowborn, and I could probably kill someone really fast with this. And, with Black Mana Acceleration, I don't even really need much time. That would be a very fast deck, and there'd be so much you could do because... just the sacrifice mechanic is really useful. Now, if I was going to do something a little nicer, and by nicer, I mean not very much nicer, I would go with something a little more interesting. I mean, I would still go Shadowborn Apostle because I have them, I might as well use them. But, instead of going for the really dick move of Thrumming Stone, which just drops them all onto the field, I'd search for something even scarier, and possibly more important. Shirei, Shinzo Caretaker. Now, that doesn't seem all that interesting because it only means when something dies, you get them back. This is a 1/1, so you would get it back. Specifically at the end of turn, and if it has power 1 or less. So it's a little fundamentally odd. But what would be interesting is I don't really need to worry about having a Shadowborn Apostle. The big thing about them is you always have them. And Sidisi is the draw spell, so basically what I would do is use him once and get either Shirei out or a sack engine. I'd be stacking the deck with sack engines, though, so it would be more than just Phyrexian Altar. But this way, I would always have some way to do something. The Shadowborns will never be an issue. Now, it's a little more janky this time around, but with, your guy, you always have it. And because he's only a 5, paying 5 and then 7 for 2 search isn't bad if you want to sack him. I wouldn't recommend it, though, because you have so many other interesting things to sack. The fun part, though, is that you don't have to cast him. Any blink spell. If you have multicolored deck, there's a lot more options. But, there's so many interesting ways to use this. The one I would really like to go for is the one I started to outline. Because this just works out really well. You end up just sacking this for mana. You get enough Shadowborns that they die often enough. And you'll get them back, so you don't have to worry about that. And then whatever's in your hand, you just play out. Or, you search for the card you need to win, maybe, say, even an Eldrazi Titan, those that are legal in EDH, and you drop that in. There's just so many ways to really quickly churn out what you want. Or, if you have some kind of death mechanic, say, when something dies, you do X, do that. There's so many ways to abuse this because it just works out well. It gives him something he can always sack, it gives you a mana outlet, and it gives you options. Now, the big thing about Sidisi, though, is he's very versatile. I know I've said that already, but I cannot underscore just how good he is because, well, He is Black's answer to everything. Literally, I mean, if you need something, he will find it. And since anything on the field probably isn't the answer you need, he is going to just get rid of that and clear it up for what you do want. He just solves problems. That is literally his biggest thing. Now, the little strategy I outlined is simply my own because I'm an asshole. But there's a lot of things you could do. Conjurer's Closet, for example, makes him go off every time. And that's only if you want, which is also important. But there's just... your limits with him are literally the limits of what you have in your deck. And for anyone with a decent EDH deck, or hell, even a bad one, that shouldn't be much of a limit at all. He is truly one of the best generals I've seen. The only downside is, when he's a general, it has to be straight black. But as anyone who's played EDH in a commander setting, or hell, anywhere, mono black decks are viable. They've always been viable. It doesn't really matter who your general is. It's going to be scary. And that's only if you're going on the standard one. If you have any variations, it will work. And it will be terrifying. I don't need to justify having a black EDH deck. And even him as a general, well, to be fair, in a black EDH deck, you kind of know what you get for a standard competitive one. And the general really doesn't matter. I've seen a lot of people with Sheldred, some with Skithrix, assholes, and some people who just run up a flat Ob Nixilis. But I think Sidisi is probably the best just because you could put all those guys in your deck and just find the one who fits your situation the best. If you need a Sheldred, get a Sheldred. If you need Skithrix, you're an asshole and you should probably get killed first, but find a Skithrix. It just works out. He's a very good toolbox commander in a deck type that doesn't need a toolbox. But when it has one, it is so incredibly good. Not to mention, any format with this guy in him, well, specifically EDH, but I mean color-wise, he's still going to work out. I mean, the only way I wouldn't recommend him is if you're running a Voltron deck with very few creatures. Because at that point, you're just wasting him. Short of that, though, he's just a solid card, because if nothing else, he's a 5-drop who lets you search, and then you have a really significant blocker who you can theoretically do something to get more search spells out of. It just is a very good card. I know I'm not illustrating so many ways, but that's because he can work in so many ways. The one I outlined is literally just the simplest for me to think of because I already have a deck doing that, and he just makes it better, which is what he does. He makes your strategies more viable because he gives you such a quick and efficient tool. Yeah, as long as getting rid of a single creature isn't going to completely sink or destroy your strategy, he works out well. That's just the best benefit to him. Oh, and he's also a 4/6 blocker who has Death Touch, so he isn't bad even in that right. But really, if you're attacking with this guy, it's just kind of there at that point. So yeah, that's the video. I'm Mike. If you liked it, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one, which I really hope will be Magic Origins, because I really want to get my printer up and running so I can start doing those again. God, there's so many new good cards. Later.